This is Our Blood Runs Black, a podcast honoring the people, the faith, and the coalfield legacy that shaped generations.
Hey friends and family, welcome back. This is Our Blood Runs Black. This is our third or fourth podcast, I believe. And we enjoy each one that's been here each week, teaching us more about the coal mining industry and McClure 1 mine explosion that our dad was in. I'm Marcia Sutherland Self.
I'm Rebecca Reiner White.
And we're just so glad that you're here. We do have our new book out. It came out in June, Our Blood Runs Black, and this is the story of the McClure 1 mine explosion. And the guys around the table today and that have been on our podcast were there that evening. And today we're going to be talking to Wayne Fields, and he was on the recovery team. So we're going to be learning more about the recovery team and what they do and what all he had to do that night in order to recover our lost ones underground. And he's going to share with us now. Thank you.
I have a starting question, Wayne. So nice of you to be with us. So when there is a mine accident, and in this case, a couple of the workers went in right after, but typically you get rescue in first, or does rescue and recovery go in together?
When we first get there, our rescue team actually gathers up. And then we will put our apparatuses on. And after we put those on and check ourselves, we check each other to make sure everything's working properly. And then we're the ones that really are supposed to go in. Anybody, individual's not supposed to just take off and go in. But fortunately that night, we did have some people that was underground that did go on up and see about the 2 left people.
Okay.
And by doing that, they saved lives.
Oh.
They saved 3 lives.
3 lives.
And that was very important at that time that they did that. Normally we would rule against that. But fortunately that did happen, and it saved 3 lives. But
And one of those was my dad, of
That's
course.
right.
It was Miles and Emery Howard
yeah,
and Joe Boyd.
and Joe Boyd.
And we think that those 3 men that went in that night, they're heroes that night that saved those 3 men. They would not have made it.
Right.
But because you don't know if another explosion is coming, or you don't know exactly what's happened and what danger people could be in if they go back in.
Well, one of the things there is your explosion, when you have one, basically it takes somewhere between 4 to 7 hours before you would have another one. It takes that long for it to build up.
Okay.
And actually your most valuable explosive range is at 7%. That's the most valuable.
For the
Even-
methane.
Yes. But thankful for those guys that did do that, because they had time to do it. And that's some of the things that I've always questioned, just like the when they had the methane fire in West Virginia, MSHA helped them back, did not allow them to go in. And one man had already went underground at that time, 80 breaks, and he knew it was safe. But MSHA made them start, the rescue team, start at the outside and make all of that area all the way up to there, and just killed time. And when they got there, then all the men except one was dead.
Also.
And
What
if
was
they
the
had
name
got-
of that mine?
I don't recall the name of it, but it's one of the last explosions that happened in West Virginia. And that always bothered me, because I really knew the MSHA guy that helped those people back. And that bothered me worse, that I knew him. But getting back to McClure 1, I received the call that afternoon about the explosion. But prior to that, I had been up there that day. At that time, there was curtains hung everywhere except one location. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. That one location, the line curtain was not hung. And it was actually pulling air off of one left. also.
And one left is just directly beside of
It was
two
beside of two left. The air that was coming up the intake and up the belt line. And which could create the ideal of methane building up in those areas. I often thought back, you know, how many times that I went through there that day and I didn't even think to hang that curtain there myself. Guilty. You know, I'm not proud of that. But after that, then, you know, I came out and then the evening shift went in and there was nobody really thought about that. And it went on. And like I started to say earlier, I got the call that evening. I don't remember what time it was. And I don't even remember who called me. But I took off and started toward our training center to get our apparatuses. And on the way there, I thought, Lord, I'm going to have to load all that stuff up myself, and it's going to take a lot more time. So as I was going up Gravel Leg, going toward Carbo, I stopped and got Junior Leonard, who was a mine foreman there at the mines, to go with me to help me load that stuff up. And after I got it loaded up, then he went back home. But I went on to the mines with all of our mine rescue apparatuses. And when I got there, I got my work clothes on and got my apparatus and I put mine on. And I took off and went to the elevator. And I started underground. And when I got to the bottom, I met Darrell. And Darrell asked me to go back out, that they had already been up there and they had found the people that were alive and the ones that weren't, except for two people. They couldn't find Mr. Reiner or they couldn't find Mr. McCoy. And I went back out, and then at that time the rest of our rescue team had arrived. So then we went back underground and actually went up to the section, and we found those people up there and started removing them. But then we were still hunting for Mr. Reiner and Mr. McCoy. So
And what was your team's name? How many was on your team?
we were, at that time I was on the Dante Mine Rescue Team. I had been on the Moss 2 team for years, since 1975. And after we discovered the bodies on the section, several of us left, and we went back down and started up the trackway, going back up into 2 left. And as we started up through there, we met the Jeep. It was right at the mouth of the section. It had drifted away from where Mr. Reiner and Mr. McCoy was.
So can I ask, the bodies that you were recovering, they were mostly around the face?
They were up in the face area.
But you knew 2 bodies needed to be accounted for.
Right. And that's the 2 we were looking for.
And so when you found the Jeep, you knew there were 2 people that must have been in,
That was,
which
should
was
have been on the Jeep.
Dad and Luther.
Yes, but they were not in it. So we proceeded to walk on up the trackway, and when we did, about halfway up through there, we found F.C. Reiner and Mr. McCoy.
Why do you suppose they were not in the man trip?
I feel like that the explosion started right at them.
Yeah.
And it actually was so much force that it blew them off.
Oh, okay.
But the sad part of it was that Mr. McCoy looked like he had tried to crawl up and under the belt line. Mr. Reiner, he was just laying there beside of the belt line. And as we picked them up, you know, you saw things that happened to them. They were burnt pretty bad. Normally in an explosion, right where it happens, it's your least vital point, but for some reason at this location, it must have been the most vital point because of the way that they were. And I mentioned it once before in their new book. Their fingers were like webbed together, which made it look, really difficult, that they really had been really hot. But from that point, we covered the bodies because we were trained that the first thing you do is show respect for that body. You're not to just poke on it or do anything, just cover it up. And that's what we did, and we actually put a body bag, each one of them. We had those with us. And from that point, we carried them back out of there, down to where the man-trip Jeep was. And then we had a man-trip Jeep in front of it. And we loaded those men up on the man-trip Jeep. And just as we started to pull out to leave, the Jeep jumped off the track. And there we were wrecked. And I'll call his name. Ray Robinette went to cussing. He was a cussing up a storm because that Jeep had jumped off the track. Well, we started jacking it up and got it back on the track. And I looked around and Ray was on his knees and he had both arms raised straight up. Said, "Lord, please forgive me for all this cussing I've done. I did not realize what I was doing." So all of that kind of went away then, and we got the Jeep back on the track, and we proceeded outside with the two bodies that we had. And at that point, we just loaded them up and carried them over to the elevator, and we took them outside. And basically, that was all that I was involved with at that point.
I know you mentioned the webbed hands. My dad, Miles Sutherland, was taken to Charlottesville. And that was one of the surgeries that they had to do with my dad. He had severe burns. He had third-degree burns over 67% of his body. But his hands were webbed, like Aqua, or whatever his name was on television at the time. I remember it specifically. His hands were webbed, and what they did is they cut his hands here, all of this off, and then they put part of his leg on one hand and part on the other, and then they stapled them together. And then they were wrapped so that when the wrapping came off, he still had bandage gauze, was the imprint on his hand, but he had fingers then. The web, they had removed the web. And I've often wondered why the web was there. I just thought maybe it was him. I didn't know other bodies had been found with webbed fingers. I think that's interesting of why they would do that.
And the one other thing that I will go ahead and mention was when we picked the bodies up, their boots were off.
No boots. Off both men.
Off both men. Their rubber boots were
FC had leather boots. So the strings were burned out.
Yeah, that's what it was on his. And
The strings were burned out.
So how many men were there, do you think? How many recovery men did you have that night in teams?
we had actually 6 of us on our team. During my time, I was in 7 explosions and can't remember if it was 2 or 4 mine fires. Those 3 men that went up there recovered those people, and they had nothing. No kind of apparatus or anything.
They didn't have a methane detector. Darrell giving his to somebody else.
Yeah, they just went. And so they were actually the true heroes of this, if there was ever a hero.
Darrell Holbrook.
Darrell Holbrook
And Blake Blackstone and Ron Sluss.
And we're speaking of the 3 men that were employed there at McClure in positions of floating foreman or whatever you call, can't remember if Darrell was on a shift or not, particular shift, but that were working and were employed there at the mine as coal miners and decided to go back in the mine before it was cleared. They went in.
It wasn't safe for them to go.
It was not
No,
safe.
it wasn't.
And the mine was not cleared, and they went back into that mine. And because they did that, Marcia's father survived, Joe Boyd survived, and Emory Howard survived. And we are very thankful for them.
We are.
And-
They had walked by Joe Boyd twice. They had already taken his pulse twice and didn't get one. They left him for dead.
Right.
And kept walking by him, and he was laying there dead. And then one gentleman I know went head first into water. I don't think that was Emory. Emory was burned
that was
really,
Ernie
really bad.
Hall, the
Ernie
new
Hall went
foreman.
face forward into water, but Emory had severe burns on his face. And they just said he looked like a monster, that his whole face was covered with burns. But we're glad that he's still with us. He's in Lebanon. We get to go see him some and read to him, and he got his book. So
And Joe is still alive.
Joe, yeah,
And your dad passed.
my dad passed 9 years ago. So,
But Wayne, thank you.
is there anything you guys want to ask Wayne while he's on the hot
Did Don
seat?
Duncan go up there with them, with Darrell and them?
Norman called. That's my.
They went,
Yeah.
they went later, what they actually did.
The Don was on the McClure team, the
Yeah.
mine rescue team. So,
I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's
but,
okay.
They went in before we did,
yeah.
because they got there before I got there with the equipment.
I've been in touch now with the rescue squad driver that drove Dad, Harrison Jesse. If any of you know him, I'll be meeting with him next week, and I'm excited to hear what he has to say, what my dad said to him.
But Wayne, I want to be sure that I convey. I don't know how to even convey it deeply enough to you. Gratitude and thanks for what you did. And that you've carried that and that memory all these years, and how strong you are, and being able to be vocal and talk about such a tragedy. Truly admire you, and I want to thank you and your team.
Well, honestly, when you're doing that, you can't be thinking about, well, what if this happens to me? 'Cause Danny Man and myself, one night, we crawled by a body twice
Not McClure one.
and didn't even know it was there.
Yeah.
That's how black and dark it is, and we're as close as we are sitting here now. And the body was between us.
And you know, Ronnie earlier mentioned how dark it is, and I'm not sure that people really understand when you talk about dark from a mining accident.
Your light does not reflect anything.
Everything is
There's
black.
nothing no reflection at all.
Total
And-
darkness. It's total.
And here in the last few minutes, I'd like for you to pick up what you have in front of you. This is the Bible they found the night of the explosion that my dad had on him during his lunch break. And I'd like for you to just open it just a little bit for me and show it. It was turned to 1 Peter 1:7, that we may go through fiery trials. And this is where it is. And here's the Bible that my dad had on him the night of the explosion, and is also in the book. But we thank you, Wayne, for being here this week. We'll get into the Bible a little bit more at some time in the future and be able to share it. I do want to put it in a case, but
We want to thank you for your viewing time, and it's been a pleasure. God bless you.
and let's dig coal. Thank you.